Dudes! What the hell is going on? So, ever since E3 has ended, I've really wanted to make a couple of follow-up videos talking about my experiences with the games, with the systems, with all the new stuff that's been going on at the show, and especially one talking about my experience with the game that I played more than any other at the show, and is my personal game of the show, and that's Killer Instinct. If you guys would like a comparison of the other games of show that I really liked, I think right after Killer Instinct was Bayonetta 2 on Wii U, and right after that was Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Shockingly, I had a ton of fun with my wife playing that game in the setup environment that they had us playing it in. So, let's talk about
Killer Instinct.
There it is. For you guys that don't know, you probably already do, I'm a pretty big Killer Instinct fan. I grew up with those games and they're kind of like embedded into my heart and soul. I grew up, actually, well, now that I think about it, Killer Instinct was my first music CD. It came with a free music CD when it came out. Holy, hang on a sec. Here it is. There we go. Killer Cuts. Came with a 15-track album and actually a secret bonus track. If you listen to the end of the CD, that was the entire wonderfully crafted musical score that was made for the game, and I listened to it religiously. Now that that's out of the way, oh, speaking of which, I have this extremely old Killer Instinct t-shirt. I actually don't know what's in this thing because it's been compressed to hell. I don't know what the t-shirt actually looks like, but holy shit, if you look at the date on this thing, it says 1995. They handed this out at the 1995 E3 where they first showed Killer Instinct 1 on Super Nintendo with all them hot sexy chicks dancing to that KI Fever. I wish I knew what was on this t-shirt. Now that that's out of the way, you guys understand that I'm a pretty big fan. I like those games an awful lot. I take a lot of time in between playing them so I can get a different perspective of how they are, and the new Killer Instinct is a lot different. It's, at the same time, trusts its roots. Now, what I want to talk about is kind of the direction the game is going, the direction that I got from talking to the art directors, the designers of the game, people designing the combat, people designing everything about it, because they were there in full force. So, for you guys that don't know, the original Killer Instinct had a really specific design decision about it. The fact that it was going to take little bits and pieces from all these other fighting games and stick them into one. And that's exactly what it did. It took all the stuff people liked about Street Fighter that were like combos and things like that, took all this gore and all this nasty fatality stuff that people loved about Mortal Kombat, and just put it into a big doughy ball and went brah. In fact, before they went brah, inside this doughy ball was a ton of different 1990s tropes, bing, movie characters and icons, bing, and all this other stuff that existed from other things. Comic books, old films, and I can just keep going on and on. All the stuff in Killer Instinct 1, between its giant bipedal dog werewolf man, the Jason and the Argonaut skeleton, a dude that was literally the Human Torch, a robot that resembled the Predator and Terminator, and then sexy Asian chick into a giant ball, and what do you have? Killer Instinct. That's literally what it was. The combos in the game were made to resemble something like Street Fighter when combos were first being discovered back in those games back in the day, and they were becoming really popular and everyone loved combos, and also the gore and all the craziness that was Mortal Kombat and all the goofiness and silliness, and they threw that into Killer Instinct as well. That game is so tongue-in-cheek it hurts. For God's sake, a girl takes off her shirt, shows a giant bipedal dog man her breasts, and his eyes bug out of his head and he goes and he dies.
Awesome victory.
Killer Instinct. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I think it's hilarious, and I think a lot of stuff about that game is really funny nowadays. So it's got a place in here. It's got a place in my heart. Over time passing, I have acknowledged that Killer Instinct is not the greatest fighting game. A lot of things about it, as far as design decisions within the combat, seem like they were designed kind of haphazardly, and the greatest thing that Killer Instinct as far as a fighting game that it has is the fact that the combos are really good. Doing combos in KI feels fantastic. It still feels good to this day, albeit the executional barrier, dude, like doing moves in KI is strict as hell. You better have a really good arcade stick if you want to play that game. Now, moving on to comparison of the new KI. The new KI follows suit to this. Not to the gameplay parts, but to the design aspects. Taking things from other fighting games that feel really good and putting them into a doughy ball, and you have Killer Instinct of 2013. And I can tell you why this is. Let's talk about game feel, which is one of the most important freaking things in a fighting game or in regular video games. This is why I'm gonna claim 60 frames per second is the most amazing thing as far as video games goes, and why you need to have it on every single freaking thing. There's a good reason, because game feel is one of the most important things to have in a fighting game. And KI does a really good job with game feel for a few reasons that I can hopefully identify. It preserves what was really good about the old KI, with ignoring a lot of the stuff that was really bad. Old KI, what felt really good in that game? Like I said, for me personally, I'm not gonna say this is the best thing for you. You have your own experience, but for me, it's doing combos. Combos in KI feel really good. When you nail that combo, you get the linker, you get the auto double, you get the ender, and you get a juggle at the end, feels fantastic. That's still there. That's completely what the combat is all about at close range, is landing that overhead, landing that opener, landing that linker, countering that ender, countering that opener with a crush. All that rock, paper, scissor element is still there. But the stuff that's around it, the meat of the game, the neutral game, like the neutral game literally means that what are you doing? Like, between you actually getting in and attacking each other, there's this neutral game. When you're sitting there trying to do something with your character, are you constantly like, jumping in on each other? Well, that's what a lot of the original KI was. Full screen wind kick, full screen full gore slash, try to hit, didn't hit, he does his, I do mine, he does his, I do mine. It's just that over and over again. Like the footsies and the neutral game in the old KI gets really boring at a high level. And I actually noticed this with my friends Kenny and Steve when we fired up KI again recently on the week of Killer Instinct. And by the end of it, when we were playing the game a lot and we started getting some combos down and remembering how the game is, holy shit, this is boring. It was shocking. It was like, man, this sucks. The game's an amazing training mode game, is what it ends up being. Trying to break it as much as you can. It literally ends up being who can get their overhead, who can get their, their crouching attack into that. Who's got an unbreakable combo? Who's gonna get to the infinite first? And a lot of what the new KI fixes is that. I see the comparison to Street Fighter 4 an awful lot. Like a lot of dudes are like, this game's just Street Fighter 4. It looks like Street Fighter 4. It plays like Street Fighter 4. I didn't even play the game, but that's what it is. Well, let me tell you something, mister. You're kind of right. Street Fighter 4 did a lot of things as far as the 2D on a 3D plane. It was the first game to really invigorate that, to try to bring that up to people that we can have 3D graphics but make it still 2D. It works. It's an amazing mechanic, and they actually still preserve that in the new KI. And it feels, as far as movement goes, yeah, it feels a little bit like Street Fighter 4. Jumping has these big jump arcs. You can very clearly see what's going to cross up and what isn't, which is different than Street Fighter 4. That's the huge problem with SF4 that I've always had, is like, is that going to cross up? No, it didn't. It's like waiting for that. In other Street Fighters, I don't have that problem a lot of the time. It's in Street Fighter 4, it's just like, is that going to cross up? I don't even think you know, and it was a huge issue for me. In KI, it's very obvious what is going to cross up a lot of the time, and you just gotta block correctly. So the movement, as far as jumping and walk speed and things like that, yeah, it feels like Street Fighter 4. There's even backdash invincibility. So that just goes to show you they're taking things from other fighting games. I think that's also in Guilty Gear as well. So if you backdash, you get a couple of frames of invincibility trying to escape that throw, and throws are like Street Fighter 4 as well. Light punch and light kick is a throw. So teching throws is pretty easy too. It's not like mashing forward and heavy. What it's not like though is the speed. Street Fighter 4 is kind of a slow fighting game. Kinda, it depends on what character you play. If you're playing like Steve Viper or something like that, or El Forte, it's just 50 everywhere. In Killer Instinct, a lot of the speed of the game is much more resembling to Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. The characters' dashes are the best example I can give of this, and the fact that there's only 2 characters doesn't make this any easier to explain. But quite literally, the dashing speed of Jago when he's dashing forward, and of Saberwolf, I'm like, yo, this reminds me of Ken and Makoto. Like, a lot of that matchup was like, I'm constantly, as Jago, I felt like I was Ken a lot of the time, and Makoto was the grappler, like, in-your-face character, and even though Saberwolf isn't a grappler, once he gets in, it's hard to get him out, and he's a rushdown character, like, hardcore. He's got a vortex of high and low. Yo, it is. You do not want to trifle with it. And the reason I know this is that I waited a long time to play the game with some dudes that were pretty good at it. Specifically the guys like Alex Valle, Keats, who made Dive Kick, and a few others were there that I got the luxury of playing against, and as far as some high-level KI, and there were some other guys that were getting really good really fast too. And it became this game of like, you sit there and you're trying to get meter. You're trying to build up your EX meter because these EX meters with Jago send you flying full screen, and if that hit lands, it leaves you plus on block, allowing you a chance to get for like a mix-up and stuff like that. And you build meter really quick. You can build meter very fast as long as you get in on your opponent and force them to block special attacks. So it's really encouraging. Don't play the game back here. Play the game right here, and especially right here. The biggest reason, and I'm going to go into a bit more deeper of KI, and why a lot of guys are like, this game is so mashy, oh my god, you can just and get combos. It's true. With a character like Saberwolf, you absolutely can, because they took out Saberwolf's charge requirement. Saberwolf's moves are just back forward and up down, or down up, with a move or a punch or a kick. So that means that you don't have to do the crazy killer instinct, charge back, forward, auto double, keep holding forward, forward, back for the linker, back forward again, so you have to like reverse your charge motion constantly. That's gone. Saberwolf is a very easy to use character, which is why you see a lot of guys using Saberwolf and just doing back and forward and pressing buttons, and they're getting combos. The thing is, you get these combos, but that's not how KI works. KI doesn't work as far as you getting as many hits in your combo anymore. You can get a 32 hit combo, bigger than most ultras in the original Killer Instinct, and that thing's only going to do 15, maybe 13% damage. You know why? Is because they added a skill gap. The skill gap is you can mash and have fun and, ooh, I'm doing a big pretty combo, this is awesome. However, the damage comes in the ender. For you guys who don't know what the ender means, in Killer Instinct when you have a combo it goes on and on and on and on, but there's a very specific command you have to enter at the end of the combo in order to get the damage, in order to get a special flashy ender. Jago, for example, spin back kicks a guy, punches them into the corner, and as they're juggling, they actually hit a fireball. It looks sick. It looks really cool. But if you don't do that, guess what happens? You get like a 15% damaging combo. If you do land the ender, guess what happens? 15% to 35 or 40. It's just nuts. You have to land the enders, which is why the term guys are using cash it in. The developers were using cash it in. I was using I was saying get that money. Get that money! Scooter combo, get that money! And it was just worth it in the long run. You have to cash in your combo as fast as you can to get the damage. So there's where the skill gap is. You have a guy doing this big ass combo against you, you're like, this is a scrubby game. Oh my god, this guy doesn't even know how to play. And he's doing all this stuff. They're trying to make the game accessible to people. And for that reason, I can see where they're going. Sure, it's kind of annoying to see like, this used to be hard, like you had to work your butt off to get killer combos back in the day in the old KI, kinda. And now you can just mash buttons to get something really big. Doesn't matter because it doesn't do any damage. Don't worry guys, for any of you that are avid fighting game fans and like to make sense of what's going on, those higher level matches that I had playing against guys like Alex Valle and Keats specifically, that's where I really started to appreciate the game. This crazy metagame of like this footsie and spacing where you can't be really defensive, where if you have a fireball war at full screen, you can't just block fireballs, you can't just jump over fireballs, you gotta counter fireballs with fireballs. I'm not gonna let you get meter for this because you're eventually gonna get a full screen wind kick with Jago and it's gonna rip through my fireball. It's cool, like that was cool, that was a really good idea. So that's the base feel of the game. That's what Killer Instinct breaks down to now. You get all these little meta games between, I know that you're always attacking low with Saberwolf. If I'm using Jago, yo, this laser sword is what's gonna rip through your face. And you just EX laser sword right through all that shit and that starts a big ass combo for you. Mash breaker too fast, and if you try to break people way too fast in a combo right at the beginning of combos, you usually screw up. What I found is that a lot of the guys that like going for longer combos, you try to learn their patterns. You try to like dissect them because they get like 3 or 4 times to do auto doubles and that's what you break. And I just sat there and instead of trying to break it at the start, I was like, I'm just gonna look at this thing now because if I miss this double at the start, he's gonna get, if I miss this breaker at the start, he's gonna get all this damage. But I'm gonna sit here and watch what he does with all these doubles. There it is. Break the combo right there. And if you notice the pattern, guess what happens if he does a little bit more combo? He got 3 extra %. It's worth to look for a pattern in the combo to break the combo instead of trying to break it immediately, just trying to mash your fingers. I learned that. I learned that that's how you want to go against guys that really know how to play the game. That's cool. I like that a lot. I think that's a great idea. There's still things that need to be balanced. Sure, some characters had some broken stuff. We were already finding some crazy broken things with Saberwolf and Jago for the most part. I really liked some of the stuff that I was able to find with him. And I think that's okay because the game is very early. It hasn't been play tested that much and they're still getting a lot of feedback. That's the one thing that they are very adamant about, feedback. Understanding what people are saying about our game and us changing the way the game is going to be. because it follows that suit. Killer Instinct is a game that takes things from other fighting games and puts them into one to make something really good, to kind of like cut out the bullshit of other games. I'm not saying it's doing that exactly, but that seems to be the mentality behind the development. That's something I can get behind. That's something that got me really excited when I started playing KI, the new one. And I really started to sympathize with the developers and were like, you guys get it. Like, you guys understand what we've been wanting out of fighting games. We don't want, which is why I support Skullgirls a ton too. We don't want developers that sit behind desks and talk to other developers about what they think should be in a fighting game with like no consult to how it actually works in the community. And it's just, and it comes out and it's crazy, broken and busted, and everyone's just like, that game's dead. So I like this. I like this a lot. I like being able to talk to the people that are making the game as far as a community of people that really like fighting games. And it shows, because I could not find one person, and I was actively talking to almost everybody that was playing the game because I wanted to get input and feedback, because it was important to me. Like, I stayed at the Mad Catz booth the entire third day and just played KI and talked to people. I just talked to developers and I talked to people playing the game because I wanted to get the most information possible. I wanted to report back to you guys exactly what's up, not based off a single fighting game, like a single experience. Just playing the game for a couple of minutes and going, ooh, I'm fine. No, I wanted to play it for a long time to understand what the hell is actually going on. So, holy hell, that went on for quite a long time. What I kind of want to do is to break these up, because, Ben, I could talk about each one of these specific things about the game quite a bit. And the thing that I also really want to make maybe a separate video about is the graphics, breaking down what Killer Instinct looks like and why it looks like the way it does. So stay tuned, guys. If you got a little bit out of this video, please let me know in the comments below. Like I said, I put a lot of time into this game, probably more than any other person at the show besides a few dudes, and I was talking with those dudes a lot about Killer Instinct, and they seemed just as into it as I was, as far as learning stuff about the game, the mechanics, and finding out where they're going with it. So stay tuned, guys. Tomorrow I'll be talking about another part of the Killer Instinct breakdown, which is going to be all about how the game looks and dat graphics. See you guys tomorrow. Really wonder what the hell is on this shirt.